that we're encouraging you to take on is, what is authentic transformation? And just tackle that in whatever way makes sense for you personally.
Around incremental change, and it's done within the current ways of thinking. So one way to think of it is Starbucks is opening a new store, and they're just following the way they've always done a new store. They've done many before. It's very well defined how to do it. There's some differences with, you have to negotiate the space, it'll be a different person, etc. But it's doing more of the same. And the core questions around here are about how to do it efficiently, because you've done it many times before, so you have best practice. And it's about copying and duplicating, mimicking what's been done before. The change level of reform is reflective about how shall we change perhaps the rules or the relationships within a certain operating framework. So this is where we have policy reform. That's usually what people mean when they say policy reform. It's what people mean by organizational restructuring. Sorry about that. Then here it's about understanding the parts of the system so that you might change some sort of reporting relationship, change some ways of cutting up the pie a little differently. The pie is basically going to be the same though. So you're changing the rules. And here you're doing something that is a bit innovative, and you need pilots to test it out usually. And figuring out how to do that is about adjusting and adapting. When we talk about transformation, we mean something that takes us into unknown territory. It's about assuming that we're part of the process, that we're part of what has to transform. It's going to involve us and our ways of thinking and doing things. It's going to involve changing the purposes. So we might see the transformation happening with sustainable energy, for example. Incremental change would be trying to get more out of your current carbon fuel to be more efficient. Reform would be saying, well, maybe we should cut the carbon subsidies. Transformation would be saying we've got to totally be carbon neutral, and we've got to actually create a regenerative economy around carbon damage that's being caused. So how do we do that? It opens up new ways of thinking. It requires deep experimenting. We're doing things that have never been done before. So the important distinction here is because there's different tools and different action logics behind them. Transformation fundamentally has to do with revisioning how our future can be. So when we started doing this webinar discussion, suggested having these webinars, immediately this topic came to your mind. Transformation for whom? So I'm wondering if you can give us some illustrations of where this has been an issue and how it's played out.
Let me give you a simple example. For example, the Gates and the Rockefeller Foundation, and the USAID and some research bodies have combined together to create what they call partnership for inclusive agricultural transformation in Africa. Mm-hmm. So partnership for inclusive agricultural transformation. So the word transformation is there. So how are they trying to bring this? They wanted to work on the seeds that communities are having, because the seed is taken as a backward seed, so they have to change it, and the farmers have to use agrochemicals. Agriculture has to be reoriented into commercial kind of agriculture. The knowledge that farmers have has to change, you know. The women knowledge has to change, and farmers knowledge has to change. So this is an agenda, very clear agenda. This is one agenda. There is another agenda, which is promoting precision agriculture in Africa using drones and other chemicals to affect agricultural change in Africa. So this is a knowledge, what do you call it? A knowledge intervention that's coming to African agriculture. And the agenda is also transformation. And there are others, multitude of agendas that are coming on Africa. Who is not participating in all this agenda and all this discussion is actually the farmers. They were doing farming for the last, thousands of years, and they know how to farm, they know what soil is, but they are not involved. So who transforms home in this kind of environment? And they are not included in the learning. They are not included in the discussion about the pathway that is designed outside of their system. They are not involved in the marketing, whatever. There's nothing included there. So all of this is geared to more production. So when agriculture is geared to more production, we know what has happened in the northern part of the world, in the US, in Europe, a lot of environmental mess. And also social mess, as we know. So that's why, when you're talking about transformation, who is transforming whom? Transformation for what? And if we are doing action research, what kind of action research is actually appropriate to communities which are, which have lost their leadership at the community level, which have lost the leadership of their life? So their life is defined out of the system. It's coming to them, and how do they grapple with that? That's why we started this T-learning initiative, just to understand this, just to understand and find ways of responding to that.
So there's a lot of assumptions about that stakeholders have when they're coming into these systems. Can you explicitly address power through the T-learning process then? Or is it indirectly approached?
It's a research, we are having it in 11 countries. One of the participants, Thomas, is doing it in Colombia. We are doing it in Ethiopia. So my research is on the two research, one on sacred natural sites, and the other one is on agricultural systems. So we are creating dialogues and debates with local communities, local government, and other local actors, and trying to understand what the system is, what's wrong with the system, who is influencing the system, and how we can address the power. How, in the end, how do we give power to people in the end, to voice their concerns and also to have their way of life. That's why I like using mapping, because mapping, when they put their future scenario, then they put their pathway, the kind of future that they want very clearly. Then they can show it to the power, to their local power. But as you know, the power is multi-scalar, and the power up can disrupt what's happening to local communities, the life of local communities.
So it seems to me that you're trying to engage the local communities and the farmers who have been not really included in the process, you've said. You have other actors who think they should have the power and the right to make decisions. And they have assumptions. The government and the private companies that come in have assumptions about how the things should be done.
Yeah.
So how do you work in a research mode to be able to address those types of different senses of their own power?
To begin with, to design and define a participatory kind of agriculture. And you define the agenda, you define what to be analyzed with the actors, and you collect the data together, and finally you kind of chart the future with the local community. But we are not saying that because of this research things will change suddenly. because the power that's coming to this local community is quite strong. But how we are trying to counter, now I'm coming to the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa level, is that we collect data from the local communities, learnings and community experiences, resistance experiences. So we do research ourselves, and we build the social movement on ground, and that grouping, those networks, we came together as a bigger network, as the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, where, you know, we work in 50 of the 55 countries in Africa. You know, if we could work very hard, we can reach more than 200 million African farmers and citizens, you know. So building these networks at the local level, and also connecting that network with the network at the regional level, and doing advocacy would be probably one of the ways. That's what